Blue Bailey.
And I'm Dexter DeNovo, and this is Reading is Fundamental.
The show where we talk about news in entertainment law.
Yes, that leather daddy
And that drag queen
are both licensed California attorneys.
We celebrate queerness,
Sex positivity,
and reading bitches for filth.
And with that being said,
the library is now open.
Officially.
The library is open.
Because reading is what? Fundamental.
The information on this podcast is for general information purposes only. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as legal advice for any individual, case, or situation. This information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. Sorry about it.
What?
Fundamental.
Hello, and welcome to the new Reading is Fundamental podcast.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed, we're no longer in Dextra's living room. We're in our fancy new studio, sponsored by Daddy Fleshbot.
Yay!
And we're not even in the Bay Area anymore. We're in Burbank.
We're in Burbank. We flew down today to record some episodes for y'all, and it's revamped, redone. We're looking fabulous. I mean, I'm looking fabulous.
Yeah, how long did it take you to get into drag today?
My face took an hour and a half.
An hour and a half. How long do you think it will take me to get into drag?
Like
Can you
20 seconds.
Put a timer on? Hold on.
30, 29. No, it's not even that. It's going to be like 10 seconds. This is what she calls getting into drag.
Oh my God, there it is. I'm done. You're
beat for the gods.
I'm beautiful. Ready to get beat.
Not beat for the gods, just ready to get beat. It's been a minute since our last podcast. A lot has gone on.
Girl, it's been a couple months.
It's been a couple months. We've been to the Drag Race finale.
We have.
We just went to go see the
Dragula
tour live. You've had lots of book deals. We've been to New York since then. We've gone and we saw Leah Michelle and Funny Girl on Broadway.
The Monster live.
Yes.
We held up a sign, but she couldn't read it.
We got to see Jinx Monsoon on Broadway.
Got to see Jinx.
That was great. What else?
You launched a drag brunch.
I launched a drag brunch in my hometown of Alameda.
And I most recently did a book reading at Fist Fest in Augusta, Georgia. Do you know where Augusta, Georgia is?
It's in the South.
It's in Georgia somewhere.
Do you know where it is?
I don't.
I went there. I don't even know where it is.
I flew into Atlanta and I was thrown into a car, and 2.5 later I was punching holes by the poolside.
Oh, with famous people.
Well, maybe. Allegedly.
Allegedly famous people.
Allegedly famous people.
They only have like a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that.
So you're a leather daddy, I'm a drag queen, and we're both attorneys. We met each other when we were in law school. I don't know how many years ago, but like 8?
6 years?
No, 8.
Maybe something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, do you even remember the first time you met me?
I don't, but I remember what you've told me. I do. Wasn't I like president of Outlaw, and we were hosting like a welcome new students thing, and you came up and you thought I was a total bitch and a mean girl.
That was my first impression of you.
Yeah.
Like you said, you were doing like president of Outlaw. You were doing like this, like, oh, meet the new students thing and whatever. And I was like, hi, like, what is Outlaw all about? And you're like, it's a gay club.
Yeah.
And like just personality of a wet mop.
And I was like, who are you? Why are you here?
Like, I'm asking you about this club. And then you were just like that. And then I remember you like coming in and out of copyright class.
Yeah, very in and out.
Yeah. And I really don't remember like when we like really started to hit it off. The next memory I feel like I have is me being like, we started watching Drag Race together.
Yeah, it was one of the morning classes we had. I've always loved drag, but I never was really obsessed with Drag Race, and you kind of introduced me to that. I always thought it was like a huge like exploitation of our community and a money grab, which to some extent it is. But then I watched an episode or two, and it's got like a lot of therapy baked into it, and a lot of like recovery wisdom baked into it, and like basically I swapped out meth for Drag Race, and I've never looked back.
Tell us about your inner saboteur.
My inner saboteur?
Yeah, your
Well, yeah, I have a huge history with substance abuse.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to talk
okay.
about it.
I was like,
you don't have to.
If you want to know about it, you can read about it in my book.
I was going to plug the book, really. It's like, if you really want to read about it, you can read about it in his book, Blue Movie.
But I was probably low energy when I met you, because I probably hadn't slept for a couple days and was like, oh shit, we have this student event to do.
I mean, you showed up to the event, which is like, kudos to you.
I did. Showing up is half the battle. Is that what they say?
Even if you hadn't slept for a couple days, you showed up and it was a good thing. Mm-hmm. And then I met you and thought you were awful. But then I met you again and I thought you were great.
Yeah. And currently?
Things have changed. No. I think after that, like, we just kind of started hanging out. I mean, after Drag Race, and we're like, oh my gosh, okay, you're cool. Like, you started inviting me to things. And
Yeah,
then, like,
I invited you to DragCon, and you're like, we need to study for the bar, and you passed the bar, and I failed it.
literally.
It took me a couple tries, but I got it. But yeah, now here we are.
Charm.
Both licensed to practice in California.
Some of us sooner than others.
Slightly sooner than others, yes. But yeah, now here in Burbank.
Yeah.
Talking about topics in entertainment law.
Yeah, so I guess we should say we started this podcast just as, like, our passion project. I mean, we both bonded, I think, in law school over our love of, like, entertainment. You have a background in, like, I think your bachelor's in what, film, media studies?
Broadcast and electronic media arts.
That one. Mm-hmm. And my bachelor's degree is in music, so it's like we kind of had this, like, mutual interest in entertainment law. And so we were like, oh, let's start a podcast where we're talking about the things that we want to talk about and, like, kind of share that knowledge with other people.
Yeah, I think we're also both, like, super obsessed fanboys. So we like knowing all the details about a show, and then we like even going further and understanding how the contracts work and the intellectual property rights work and all of that fun stuff that people just usually skim over.
Yeah, I think people just, like, see the show and we want to, like, dig into it, and we want to know, like, what's going on behind the scenes with all the people, like, who's arguing with who studio's producing what, and, like, that type of thing. I mean, it's really exciting to be here in Burbank. We, like, just both of us drove in separately, but we got to see, like, the writer's strike, which sounds ridiculous to be excited about it, but it's cool to see that, you know, something is in action and something's happening and we're here experiencing it with it. So yay for the writer's strike that's happening. And
yeah, I mean, just as I was driving down in the car from the airport, you just heard, like, horns beeping everywhere. It was kind of, like, magical to see.
It's really cool.
So what are we talking about today?
Today we have a mini and a main.
Mini and a main.
So
what does that mean?
We're gonna have a mini topic. Oh,
okay.
Well, mini and a main comes from Drag Race.
Shocking.
So does the name of this podcast. Reading is fundamental. We love to read bitches for filth, so that's why we, like, started to name it that. But we have a mini and a main, so kind of like a mini topic and then a larger topic that we'll get into. But our mini today is about Lizzo's trademark.
Ooh, which trademark is this?
She filed a trademark for 100% That Bitch.
Isn't that like a song lyric?
It is exactly from our song lyrics. It's what is the song? I forgot the song. I just took a DNA test. Turns out I'm 100%
that's
that bitch.
The lyric.
I was going to sing it, but then we can't sing it because of copyright. But yeah, she filed it for clothing items. So it's like basically she wanted to file for this copyright to put 100% that bitch on, like, t-shirts, logos, blah, 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 that type of thing. And initially it was denied, but then she kind of had her attorneys fight back for it and then ended up winning the argument and getting the trademark filed. So I think, you know, just so we can talk about it to our audience, like, what is a trademark and what is the difference between a trademark and a copyright?
That's a good question, Dexter. You showed up
wow,
to class.
way to throw that right back at me.
All right, let me take a stab at this.
Did you take trademark?
I did take trademark.
Were you in my trademark class?
Maybe.
She doesn't remember.
I don't recall. So a copyright is basically a right you get for creating a work of art, and a trademark is a designation of the source of where a good is coming from. And a trademark could be a word, it could be a logo. That logo could also have a copyright to it. But when you're talking about trademarks specifically, you're talking about source.
Yeah. So I think the definition exactly from the trademark office is any word, phrase, symbol, design, or a combination of those things that identifies the source of the goods or services.
It could be a color.
It could be a color, like
Tiffany blue.
Tiffany blue, Louboutin red.
Sprint yellow. It could be a smell.
It could be a smell. I can't think of a smell.
Play-Doh.
Oh, Play-Doh. Yeah, Play-Doh has a trademark on the smell, for sure. It could be a jingle or like a little sound, like the NBC.
Oh, yeah, the little, yeah.
Yeah. So it can be any of those. Most of the ones we're used to are like the Apple logo or the, like, Google G or things like that. Like anything that you put on a good or a service that helps you know where it comes from. And it's important because it's like we need to know that that's actually where the source of goods is. We know like this is a certain quality that it comes with. It's not like going to be a knockoff or anything like that. But yeah, so Lizzo filed for a trademark, so she can do that. Specifically, the TTAB, so like when you apply for a trademark, there's an examining attorney that looks at it. They are an attorney, and they kind of like compare it to any of these other marks that they're looking at. And them in particular, this one that reviewed it, said that 100% that bitch was too common of a phrase, that like people couldn't use it because it was like so many people were saying that. And they even went and cited Urban Dictionary, which I think is ridiculous.
So when they say that it's too common of a phrase, that means when someone hears 100% that bitch, they're not going to automatically associate it as Lizzo being the source. It's just so colloquial that it comes from anywhere.
Yeah, it could come from anywhere. And they're also looking out, like they're concerned about taking words away from like the normal lexicon of people. You know what I mean? Like it can't be an infringement for you to walk around and say like sup queen or like hey queen or whatever, because that would be an infringement on somebody. So if it's like a normal phrase in verbiage, they're going to like be skeptical of it to identify a source.
Yeah, but if you're walking around just saying 100% that bitch, and you're not attaching it to a good, you wouldn't really be infringing the trademark. It's only when the two come together, right, that you use the trademark combined with the good for infringement. Is that correct?
I don't understand what you're asking.
So like if we just saying like, say like Lizzo is trademarking this, and you just said 100% that bitch, you're not violating the trademark just for saying it. No. You would have to be like, hey, this necklace is by 100% that bitch for it to be infringement.
And I mentioned earlier that like she filed for clothing items. So when you file for a trademark, you file for like a particular set of goods or services, and each one of them are like they're designated by classes, and you know some of the goods are, it could be anything like coffee section, or this one in particular, like I said, is just clothing items. So it's like maybe she's not gonna, maybe if somebody puts 100% that bitch on a coffee mug, it won't be infringing.
Why is that?
Because it's a different set of items.
I see. Okay.
So yeah. So like after they got that office action from the examining attorney, Lizzo's lawyers went back and they were like, yes, that there were other shirts. Oh, they also said that there were other shirts that like had it already. And they're like, yes, there were other shirts that had it, but those people who were selling those shirts were referencing Lizzo. Like they did it because of Lizzo. Like it wasn't anything else in the lexicon or the world that happened. It was like literally based on what she was doing.
Okay.
So the decision was reversed, and now she has been granted a trademark.
Okay, so just so I understand the process, she filed for the application. She was initially denied and had a chance to appeal that denial. And now she has the trademark. And how did she eventually get that? Like, what were the grounds for reinstating it or kind of overcoming the denial?
I would say that they proved that the phrase wasn't common, right? That it was like it meant specifically this lyric with this like artist that we were referencing. And yes, people say it, but it's like this is who we attribute it to is Lizzo. And yeah, they said like other T-shirts and other companies had it, but they countered by saying like, hey, this is like they're doing it Lizzo, like they literally put like Lizzo in their description. They're like, here's our T-shirt inspired by Lizzo. So it's like further proof that even though they were using it for their own purposes, it's like proof that they meant to be associated with Lizzo.
Yeah, I was looking in the Urban Dictionary definition. It even like relates that this phrase comes back or originates from the song, at least from the one definition they provided.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Have you heard that before the song?
100%. I think it like originated from a meme.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Lizzo kind of like took that and incorporated it to the song, and then it became widespread because of that.
Interesting.
This makes me think of a couple other cases. I don't even know cases though, but like didn't like Cardi B try to trademark like I can't even do it, that occur? Oh,
Yeah.
see, you could do it.
Yeah, she tried to do that, which was like gay appropriation. Like, let's be real. And then like really it's gay appropriation, it's like black trans women appropriation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But she did try to trademark that, and that did not go through.
Okay, and then didn't Paris Hilton like try to trademark "That's Hot"? And I know that's not like a song lyric, but that was like her kind of tagline from her show at the time.
I think she might have that.
I think she might have that too.
Yeah.
So like between the three, like where would you see the distinction of giving Lizzo a trademark for 100% that bitch and not giving Cardi B one for? Can you do it for me? I can't. Oh, grr. Yeah, I can't.
One more time for him?
No, thank you.
I think that probably with the Cardi B situation, it's like it really has been in the lexicon for a long time. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not positive, but I bet if we went to like Paris is Burning and like watched that documentary, probably somebody in there's using it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I think that it's really been a part of the culture for a long time. So it's like, okay, yeah, just because you did it in one of your songs doesn't mean that like it belongs to you or like it's attributed to you. It's been there for a long time and you just used it. But I think that like it's a little bit different with Lizzo because it's like if you say that phrase, people will be like, I took a DNA test, I'm 100% that bitch. You know what I mean?
Right, I agree. So I think with Cardi B, the distinction is occur was already well established in several different cultures and people. Like you say that word and you don't automatically go straight to Cardi B as the source.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
go
yeah.
to Drag Race, you go to Paris is Burning, as you mentioned. Whereas with Lizzo, like you do 100% have that association, even if it did maybe originate from a meme or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like the main association is to Lizzo.
The source.
The source.
Which is like what the purpose of trademark is to like identify the source. I do think that Paris Hilton has That's Hot.
Yeah,
I do
that
think
makes
so
sense.
because it's like you hear That's Hot and it's like
Paris Hilton.
it's Paris Hilton. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I just wanted to wrap up by like saying like what does trademark registration do for you? You know what I mean? Like what's the purpose of it and why is it important if you're like an artist to get a trademark for your brand design or if you're like selling a good, like why is it important?
Because it grants you a set of statutory rights. I mean, you don't need to register a trademark, and you could have a common law trademark, which is if you're looking at something, it's the T in the circle, right?
Common law doesn't, you don't use one.
Oh, you don't use one?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the registered is the R in the circle. Isn't there a T in the circle too?
I don't think it's a T.
No. Okay. Well, the R in the circle is registered, and that
You're thinking about the TM.
the TM. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's
But
the
it's not in
common-
the circle.
It's not in the
just
circle.
TM.
I got all my facts incorrect.
You got all your facts in great. It's okay. But if you don't have a registration yet and you're looking to maybe use it in the future and you want a registration, then you'll put the little TM next to it being like, hey, we're like claiming this. This is like our little like area that we want to get. We want to use this mark for our services. And then once you file, then you can use that circle R.
Okay.
And once you get the registration for it.
And what bonuses do you get for registering?
Yeah, I mean, like you can bring an infringement case against anybody else who is using your mark, right? So it's like if Apple or if somebody started like making, I don't know, well, I shouldn't say earphones because it's hard to say because they've done everything.
Yeah.
But like, what is something Apple hasn't done? Like microwaves.
Butt plugs.
Technology. But like if they started doing microwaves and then somebody called it an Apple microwave, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Then it's like, okay, no. Apple can go in and be like, hey, this is our logo and it might be foreseeable that we could do microwaves in the future.
So I think you bring up a good point. Is the class of goods that you're talking about? Because I think there's a misconception that I have a trademark for a very specific purpose, and someone else comes up with a similar mark in a completely different area, and it's infringing. So like if you have a trademark for a tattoo shop, and someone else has the same word mark as you in selling fruit, apples, like do you think that's enforceable?
It depends. So like you get like a buffer with your trademark protection. It's like a zone of protection. So it's like you have this, group of products that you're using it for, but it could include certain things that you might go into in the future. You know what I mean? So like I said, Apple's hard because it's like they've done like everything. Like we have watches and like earphones and now it's like Apple TV and fitness and all these things or whatever. So they could go into microwaves in the future. Who knows?
Yeah. I guess bringing it back to Lizzo, where we started, that kind of expansion would be Lizzo's in music, doing documentaries, doing TV shows. So expanding into merchandise and not TV shirts, T-shirts, seems like a reasonable expansion into an area that would be protected.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, like, you're an artist, you're going to sell merch. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. I mean, a lot of people make money on merch. But yeah, so that's like Lizzo's trademark. Congratulations to Lizzo. She is 100% that bitch. And that is our mini. Let's move on to our main.
All right. Our main, I'm going to say challenge, our main topic today are the drag bans in Tennessee. I know. Very like hot topic issue that's been going around, and we thought we would delve into what the actual language of the bans say and what it means.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just told with my expression, I'm like exhausted with it already. And I feel like it just happened. Like it just started and I'm already like exhausted about it.
Yeah, we're just at the tip of this.
I know. I'm already exhausted. I've been talking about it a lot. Like any gig I'm doing, I'm like plugging the ACLU Drag Defense Fund. And like, I just talked to a queen, Penny Vane, who's in Tennessee, and like what her experience is like being there. So I mean, I have a lot to talk about this, but yeah, I'm already emotionally exhausted about it. How are you feeling about it?
I mean, they're not going after my drag yet. But no, it seems like it's a very veiled attempt to go after the queer community. Everything in the queer community has always been kind of fought under the guise of protecting the children or saving the children, and I think drag is just the tip of that, and then it's going to reach out and expand. It's already affecting trans rights. It could, I mean, at what point are they going to be like, hey, like you walking around in your leather isn't safe for children, so you can't dress like that.
I mean, you are being provocative. Look at the way she's dressed.
Wow,
I'm dressed like a businesswoman, and you are dressed like a slut.
I am dressed like a professional. Thank you very much.
I'm dressed like a professional. You're dressed like a professional.
Yes.
That's how we do it. One queen that I was talking to had like a really interesting take on it, and I think it's because like she was talking about how gay marriage happened and then Roe got overturned with the Dobbs decision. And so that was like the big thing that was they were using to like rile up their base for the long time. And then like right after that happened, then it was like, okay, what now? Like, okay, drag queens, like they're awful and they're terrible. And it's like, wait, what? Like, where did this come from? To me, I'm like, literally it kind of came out of nowhere. Like,
yes and no. I mean, to bring this back to Drag Race, I think Drag Race has exploded in the past couple of years and kind of is expanding into all these like countries and is becoming part of the mainstream culture that like when I grew up, all we had was like Will and Grace and Chorus Folk. And that was two very narrow expressions of what it meant to be queer. And now kids today are growing up with Drag Race, with everything, access to everything and access to all gender identities and expressions. And I think that access is threatening to the conservatives.
I think it's interesting the timing of it. You know what I mean? Like I think the timing of like Dobbs happening and then like, okay, now what? Okay, like okay, let's scare them with the drag queens. Like you know what I mean?
I mean, some of them are scary. Look at your makeup.
Wow. I don't even have a good comeback for that. I'm like, look at your makeup. Okay. But I mean, it's exhausting. We need to keep fighting. We need to keep talking about it because, I mean, maybe you don't know, like, there's still people, even in the Bay Area, who are like, what's happening with drag? I'm like, listen, how are you not knowing this? And especially people, like, who show up to drag shows. I'm like, how do you not?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
My mom loves Drag Race and like loves going out to drag shows, and like
she didn't know.
Just a couple of weeks ago, she sent me this article on Instagram, and she's like, "Did you know about this?" I'm like, "Of course I knew about this. How did you not know about this?"
I have not met your mom, but I cannot wait to meet your mom because it's like I really feel that like understanding what your background is like growing up is like, oh, you're like 100%.
Oh, she's coming up for Pride. Yeah, her and my sister. It's my sister's 30th birthday, and they're gonna do San Francisco Pride.
Like your family loves horror movies. Your family's very sex positive.
Yeah.
Your family's like very like gay. Like
I think you end up with this.
The monster itself.
The monster.
But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot, and people have talked about it a lot. Obviously, it's the guys, of protecting children and attacking the queer community, and this has happened for a long time. This is just kind of like the next iteration of it. But I thought as attorneys, we can offer just like a little bit of spin on it and talk about what the text of this law is and like why it's problematic and why it needs to be taken away.
Let's sniff some poppers and get balls deep in this legislation.
So it starts out with saying that it is an offense for a person who engages in adult cabaret performance on public property or in a location where adult cabaret performances could be viewed by a person who is not an adult, whether or not for consideration. So it's saying if you do an adult cabaret performance, which we will get into what that means, and it could be viewed by somebody who's not an adult, aka a minor, then it's an offense.
Okay, I have a question already.
Yeah.
So I know we're going to get into the definition of adult cabaret performer, but viewed in a location where the performance could be viewed by a person who is not an adult. I mean, if something's streaming on television and they're watching it, a child is watching it at home, does that count?
This is why I was like, literally, like you can go on YouTube and just like Google Trixie Mattel. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be there. So it's like, and again, we don't know the answer to that because it's very vague. Like it's very not prescriptive. We don't know exactly what it means. It could be that it can't be viewed by a person and that the internet is included in that. But I think the like plain definition of it would be like, okay, it can't be like in public, outside, like that type of thing.
Okay.
So I think the main thing that people are concerned about now, just from the start of that, are like pride parades.
Okay.
Right? Because
Yeah,
it's like,
it's in the public,
there's going
viewable
to be
by
drag
children.
queens there.
Yeah.
And it's in the public going down the street. The queen that I talked to, thank you again, Penny Bain. Shout out to her. Follow her in Nashville. But she was talking about how bars are like they've closed their windows. So it's like
Interesting.
Even if it's like they have like an open patio or something, they've like closed it, and some of them have like tinted their windows so like you can't even see in.
That's interesting because you see that in other queer bars that host sex parties, and they like tint the windows so you can't see what's going inside. But that is fucking is a adult activity that I guess a minor shouldn't see as they're walking in the street.
But yeah, so it's like, what does public mean? Like if you can see through the window,
okay,
does that count as public?
But if you're in a venue, if you're in Oasis and you bought a ticket to go inside, is that still considered a public space?
I think because it says public property.
Public property.
So I think it's the property itself.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
so what if like DragCon is hosted on like in a state-owned building? Does that count?
That would be public property.
That would be public property. Okay.
But it's like it's at the LA Convention Center, wherever it is. I'm not going to DragCon. You went once when we were supposed to be setting for the bar.
And it was great. All right, let's move into the next definition, which are we adult cabaret performance. What does that mean?
Do you want to read it?
So adult
Can you
cabaret.
read?
Yes, I can read. Thank you. Adult cabaret entertainment as adult-oriented performances that are harmful to minors, as such term is defined under present law, features go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male or female impersonators, or similar entertainment, and include a single performance or multiple performances by an entertainer.
So
They're going after the go-go's too? I didn't know that.
this is like the thing. Okay, I talked about this. I'm gonna get all worked up. Like I'm already worked up. This is why I'm exhausted, because I get worked up about it and then I get so tired.
Yeah.
But like, one, I don't know why. Like, it boggles my mind to think that they are equating drag performances with like exotic dancers and strippers. Like,
I know, you can't even dance.
wow.
Yeah.
Says you. I like
Can't dance either.
at all. Like
At all.
Like not even a box step. Do you even know what a box step is?
I don't know what a box step
exactly.
is.
Point proven. Next case. But like, I don't get why they think that like drag is that. Like, I don't get why they're throwing it into the adult cabaret entertainment thing to begin with. Like, the only thing I could think of was like, is it because there's tipping involved? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you tip the strippers and then you like also tip the drag queens, but it's like, it's for a very different purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I could see adult cabaret entertainment having a definition that already exists, and it would be the easiest place to just lump drag queens in, because I
That's
feel,
what they did, though.
Yeah, because I feel like
This
Oasis
was already done.
Yeah,
Like,
wait,
this definition was already there.
Without
and then
the male or female
all they
impersonator.
put in was male or female impersonators.
Interesting.
So it's like they're literally inserting this into the adult cabaret definition.
Okay. Because I feel like Oasis, I think, is technically a cabaret bar. So, I mean, it logically makes sense to put it in there. But
I also love this, like, cabaret. It's like, bitch, are we in 1920? Like, what is this cabaret? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I was just going to say, you would just wait for the Nazis to come in. But it looks like they already are coming. So.
They are. Did you see it? Oh, I sent it to you, right? The one in Ohio?
Yeah.
Insane. Nazis are showing up to drag brunches. I'm like, why
Like actual
now?
Nazis, yeah.
Why now? Like, this drag brunch has probably been going on for like years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, oh my God, now's the time to show up and not show our faces. Like, for goodness sake. Okay. The second thing I have to say about this definition is this whole male or female impersonators thing. Because that's like, if anybody knows drag, that's like so archaic. I mean, there are people who do female impersonating now, but like, that's not drag anymore. Like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't say it has been for a long time, like a very long time.
Yeah. This is like pre-Gottmik Drag Race. Where like drag was considered to be female impersonation and not just an art of transformation. It was all based solely on the gender.
Yes, which is again like so weird. And then it's like, gosh, you don't even know that there are like AFAB queens. You know what I mean? Like you don't know. Like Sigourney Beaver calls herself a female impersonator.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, what about her? Did they it's like they don't even know that she exists. You know what I mean? Is she going to be criminalized under this?
Yeah, I don't know. So like I've seen posts about certain performers feeling afraid to like drive to drag and work. And just looking at the text of the statute, it doesn't seem like that's a concern. Like by the letter of the law, because it seems like it needs to be a performance for it to trigger the law.
Oh, interesting.
And not just necessarily existing. Of course, you're at the mercy of bias
whoever's
by the
enforcing.
police. Yeah, who's ever enforcing the law, and they could say you're doing whatever. But it seems like the crime is triggered by a performance, whether it's paid or not.
Okay, let's see. So, as blah, 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 exactly, blah, 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 or similar entertainers, and include a single performance or multiple performances. So you're right. I think that is... Oh my God, you're smart. Wow.
I have my moments.
I think you're right. It has to be included in performance. But like you said, it's at the mercy. It's like, you could argue that somebody is like driving down and they're doing performance art or whatever. And
Right.
it's like,
Yeah. I mean, I would kind of liken it to like public indecency laws. Like if you're a gay guy that's like taking a piss down the street, like the cop can get you just for peeing and urinating, or he could like make it a big deal and make it like being a sex offender and lewd acts in public. So
I wonder what, I mean, the next thing that's vague in this text is like, we don't know what a female impersonator is. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, again, is Sigourney Beaver a female impersonator? She is a female.
right. And then I'm just thinking like too, like what about the other Dragula artists that aren't necessarily going for the gender illusion, but are just, you're creating a monster, you're creating a creature. Like at what point is it based on gender and just wearing a ton of makeup and creating something?
And it's interesting because it's like, then we have artists like Dali and like who are like completely gender fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's gender smashed together. You know what I mean? So it's like, is it male or female impersonation? It's neither. Like it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we always joke, but like, are clowns legal now? Like,
Here's the thing. Then it would probably be illegal if it was like a male doing a female clown.
Okay,
But
yeah.
like not a male doing a male clown.
yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's
I mean,
literally
it
the
doesn't make
same
sense,
thing.
but yeah.
It's like the same thing. It's like you're just putting on drag. Like it's ridiculous to me.
So we got into the definition. The punishment for the first violation of this offense is a Class A misdemeanor. And a second violation of this offense is a Class E felony.
So if you're caught in drag twice
You go to jail.
in public
In public.
or doing a performance in public,
Doing a performance in public.
then it's a felony. We'll get into like the constitutionality of it. I think that we should like end on that.
Okay.
So like we'll get into like the offenses, but there is another term that I think is really interesting, and I want to get like your take on it.
Okay.
Is this harmful to minors? So I don't know where it came up in was it in the first one? But there's it's the definition says it's harmful to minors if it's a quality or a description that is includes nudity, sexual excitement, sexual conduct, excess violence, sadomasochist abuse, when it's a performance. And then specifically they go into like what is that type of harm. And you'll recognize that it's the same from like obscenity law. So it says it would be found by the average person applying contemporary community standards to appeal predominantly to the prurient, shameful, or morbid interests of minors. 2 is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to and is suitable for minors. And taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors.
So, okay, am I understanding this correctly, that part of it is doing the performance in public, and then the other part is the performance has to be harmful to minors? So is there a world that exists that there's a performance that's not harmful to minors, or are they conflating the two?
So the last definition that we went through was the adult cabaret one.
Yeah.
And it says, as adult-oriented performers that are harmful to minors.
Okay.
So the performance has to be harmful to minors. And so they're saying that what is harmful to minors is this sexually explicit, not part of the community standards, not, doesn't have any artistic merit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
So like start off by explaining like these 3-prong tests and where they come from.
Yeah, so these 3-prong tests come from the definition of obscenity, which was never really defined by statute. The definition of obscenity evolved over a number of court cases. It went from I know it when I see it, and that was what a bunch of Supreme Court judges would just watch porn at the courthouse and tell you if it's obscene or not.
Literally.
To a 3-prong test called, I believe, the Miller test.
I think so. Yeah.
That needs to be patently offensive, appeals to prurient interests, and lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. The SLAPS test.
God.
I know. This is one of my favorite cases to read. Obviously.
You're like, it has to do with obscenity. I
know.
love it.
The Supreme
It's
Court
right
case
up your
on
alley.
porn. But they're adding this for minors, so like
Yeah, they're adding 4 minors at the end of every
to
definition.
to lacking serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. And again, we're going back to it being very vague. What does that actually mean?
So I will say, as a point of clarification, that definition is like what we saw in the Miller test.
Yeah.
But what they're doing on top of this is adding the words for minors.
So is that so they're able to like make it up as they go and basically be like, this drag would be okay, but it has political and artistic value, but not for a kid?
That's exactly. So it's like we're bringing a whole new territory, I feel like, by adding just those 2 words. You know what I mean? Like now we're having to categorize what lacks scientific merit or artistic merit for children. You know what I mean? And I kind of wanted to see like what you thought about that. Like, it sounds like you're thinking that they're leaving it open. They put that in there to leave it open for interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, it's very vague. It seems like it kind of reminds me of like, we know it when we see it. Like, what is offensive to minors? We know it when we see it, and when we're looking at drag queens, that's offensive. I mean, I kind of agree that there's certain drag for different audiences. There is drag that could be very adult oriented and very sexually oriented, and that doesn't necessarily need to be performed in front of minors or is appropriate. But then you have drag artists like Nina West, where their whole shtick is Disney, Nickelodeon, for kids, and that to me is very appropriate. And when you kind of put this language in here that says it lacks any artistic merit or literary merit, that's kind of bullshit.
I agree. I think let's end on like the constitutionality of it and what we think we'll do in the future, or like what will happen in the future. I mean, first of all, like somebody needs to get prosecuted under this, right? So it's like,
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you kind of brought this up. Like, we were talking about the protest that Alaska and Willem
Yes.
put on, and everyone, like, you generally don't want to see like the police get involved or people get arrested, but we kind of actually do
Yeah.
because we need this case to be tested.
Yeah.
And you keep on saying, we've said repeatedly that these definitions are broad and that they're vague. And that's actually a really good thing for a court case, especially in terms of First Amendment protections, because when a definition is too broad and it's sweeping up too much speech, it's sweeping up protected speech that it's not meant to pick up, then it's more likely to be overruled by the court.
you are so smart.
I have my moments. I
cannot believe you like literally got that. I mean, you said First Amendment, so like that's probably the claim that it's going to come under, right? I mean, it'll probably bring like a civil rights claim and a First Amendment claim to free speech and like obviously artistic expression. There could be a time where they like try and preemptively like, you know, seek an injunction for it not to be enforced or whatever, but that's like pretty weak grounds for them to do it. You know what I mean? It's like you have to show harm.
Right.
And there's no real harm yet, you know what I mean? So if somebody gets arrested for this and is shown like, oh, I'm literally my rights are being taken away just because of my artistic expression, then it's showing harm.
Yeah. I mean, my far left liberal mind is like us just being queer people walking out in public is an act is a political statement. Walking out in leather drag or drag is a political statement. What worries me though, I mean, yes, we do need a case to kind of strike this down because it's the change isn't going to be coming from the Tennessee legislature. But we don't have the Supreme Court on our side anymore. And it also kind of scares me that a case like this would make its way up to a very conservative Supreme Court that would basically create a new category of obscenity that's specific to children.
Yeah, I agree. It's very scary.
But I guess the plus side of that is like if an arrest, there's so many drag shows. I think pretty much every drag show now in Tennessee is also some sort of fundraiser or some sort of protest, which makes it additionally political speech that you're trying to shut down. So on one hand, we have political speech made by adults versus protecting children from obscenity.
That would be really good if somebody got arrested at a fundraiser. That would be a very good case.
Yeah.
Because it's like double free speech.
Yeah, double free speech.
That's amazing. I mean, we didn't even get to touch on like how this affects trans people, like if they aren't, you know, are they perceived to be a female or male impersonator walking down the street, then they could be like, you know, stopped or whatever. So we didn't even talk about that. We didn't get to talk about like some other issues around it, but it's a huge topic. If you'd like to hear us talk about it more, please let us know. But for now, please donate to the ACLU Drag Defense Fund. They are the cool lawyers who are going to be the ones who are fighting this in court when a case comes up. So give them all the ammunition that we can.
Yeah, and if you're just a fan of drag, like support the community. Like this is a great art form. It's great expression.
Let them know that you love them. Give them a lot of money. Do it.
Work.
That's our main topic. We had our mini and our main. Thank you for joining us for our new Reading is Fundamental podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Until then.
Because reading is what?
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Reading is Fundamental.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you the show for free. As a reminder, Reading is Fundamental is brought to you by Fleshbot.com, the leading resource for gay erotica.
DM us with your comments, questions, and let us know what you want to hear.
Or you can email us at readingisfundamentalpodcast@gmail.com.
Until next time,
remember to read your damn contracts. Why?
Because reading is what?
Fundamental.
Fundamental.
Fundamental.